Alright, y'all, I'm telling you now, this is going to be a little bit of a long one, so sit back, relax, and let's learn about bipolar disorder and how it differs from PTSD. Hi y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Jessica. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and this is the Survivor's Guide to Life, where I discuss all things related to trauma, the brain, and healing. So if that's your jam, go right ahead right now and click that subscribe button so you can be notified every time I upload a new video. For the month of January, I was uploading every day for 31 days, and then I'm back to my once a week. But it's all great content, and I hope you stay and I hope you like it. While you are in the mood of liking things that I do, jump over to Instagram where you can follow me there, and I post every day tips, tricks, inspirational quotes, self-esteem building, love, self-love, and things of that nature, all related to mental wellness, and just having positive and healthy relationships and self-confidence, and that's what I do over there on Instagram. So it's a nice little connection, and I'm really hoping to get to the 10,000 follower count so I can get the swipe up feature and link a lot of my videos right directly to my Instagram, and just grow this community where I can share my knowledge and hope that the tips and tricks here that I give you are really useful, and the education I provide around trauma helps you or helps somebody you know, somebody you love and care about. So shameless plug over, and because this one I know is going to be a little bit long because we are talking about bipolar disorder and how it relates to trauma and how it doesn't relate to trauma. And I know there's a lot of misconceptions about bipolar and what it is and how people live with it, and so I'm going to start out by reading, like I have been doing in all of these videos, reading the actual diagnosis in the DSM right now and giving you some information all about bipolar disorder. One of the things I didn't do in the other videos but I felt was really important to do in this one was to actually read what's on the first kind of page, the introduction part of bipolar disorder. And the reason I did this is there's actually two types of bipolar disorder. There's bipolar 1 and there's bipolar 2. When I was in grad school, we would call bipolar 2 like mini bipolar, because the symptoms are not as extreme as bipolar 1. Because this one is a little bit more complex, where we're talking about two very different sides of the mental health spectrum. We're talking about mania versus depression. The way that they divided it here in the DSM was to first talk about mania and what manic symptoms look like, and then to talk about depression and what depressive symptoms look like, and then I'll read for you what bipolar 1 disorder and then also bipolar 2 disorder. Initially I was just going to do bipolar 1, but I felt it was important to do both of them. So it's going to be a little bit longer. So first things first, we're going to talk about what a manic episode looks like, and that's usually just, you know, you've only had the symptoms of mania one time, that gives you a manic episode. And the same thing with the depressive episode. You've had the symptoms of depression for, you know, one time, or like for a certain period of time, one time in your life, and that's like what we consider an episode. In order to have the full-on diagnosis, you have to have a specific number of episodes. Like that's how we determine whether you have like major depression as a disorder, is that you've had one episode of a depressive episode, if that makes sense. So it's like a little bit complex, but I'm trying to make it easy. So let's jump into it and let's talk about mania first. Manic episode. Category A distinct period of abnormally and persistently elevated expansive or irritable mood and abnormally and persistently increased goal-directed activity or energy lasting at least 1 week and present most of the day, nearly every day, or any duration if hospitalization is necessary. B. During the period of mood disturbance and increased energy or activity, 3 or more of the following symptoms, 4 if the mood is only irritable, are present to a significant degree and represent a noticeable change from usual behavior. This part is really key. This is going to be a shift from typical behavior that you've had before, and it needs to be significantly noticeable. Number 1, inflated self-esteem or grandiosity. Number 2, decreased need for sleep. Feels rested after only 3 hours of sleep. 3, more talkative than usual or pressure to keep talking. you will really know. Most folks who I've worked with who have bipolar disorder, they actually don't notice their speech, but other people, and especially like me as a therapist, I mean, just like with borderline, I know within a minute of talking to somebody, ooh, this person's got some borderline, we're gonna work over here in this direction. Like it's like a certain feel you get when you've been doing this for a long time, or for a certain amount of time, where you start to see these patterns that a person has. And with bipolar, it's a pressured speech. Like I really don't have any other way of describing it other than it just feels very, very pressured. Like it's more than a feeling of out of control. Not only is it pressured, like I'm trying to think if I can give an example, but it would be like, today I went to the store, and then at the store I was going and I bought a cake. Like it's like that, and they're just like, it's really rapid, and it's like boom, and you there's no breath in there. That was like a really poor example. I hope I didn't offend anybody, but like it has that intensity to it, and it feels very pressured and very strong. Like as the receiver, you're like, it's a wind being blown in your hair, kind of. So that's what it feels like to the person on the outside. And for most folks, they don't even notice this piece when it's happening for themselves. Number 4, flight of ideas are subjective experience that thoughts are racing. Also, we'll get this with some anxiety and some trauma related issues. I like to, when I talk with my clients and I describe, like, do you have racing thoughts? Do you feel like you have all these thoughts that are happening all at once, and you like can't hold on to any one of the thoughts? It's like that kind of a feeling. You see that with trauma, you see that also with bipolar, and specifically with a manic episode. Number 5, distractibility, attention too easily drawn to unimportant or irrelevant external stimuli as reported or disturbed. You'll see this with ADHD also. Number 6, increase in goal-directed activity, either socially, at work or school, or sexually, or psychomotor agitation, purposeless, non-goal directed activity. Number 7, excessive involvement in activities that have a high potential for painful consequences, engaging in unrestrained buying sprees, sexual indiscretions, or foolish business investments. The sexual piece, see quite often, but you often will also see this with some PTSD. C, the mood disturbance is sufficiently severe to cause marked impairment in social or occupational functioning, or that necessitate hospitalization to prevent harm to self or others, or there are psychotic features. D, the episode is not attributable to the physiological effects of a substance, a drug of abuse, a medication or other treatment, or other medical condition. Note, a full manic episode that emerges during antidepressant treatment, medication, electroconvulsive therapy, can't believe they still do that, persists at a fully syndromal level beyond the physiological effect of that treatment is sufficient evidence for a manic episode, and therefore a bipolar 1 diagnosis. Note, criteria A through D constitute a manic episode. At least one lifetime manic episode is required for the diagnosis of bipolar disorder. Hypomanic episode. So we used to call this like baby mania. A distinct period of abnormally and persistently elevated expansive or irritable mood and abnormally and persistently increased activity or energy, lasting at least 4 consecutive days and present most of the day, nearly every day. So right here is the difference. B, during the period of mood disturbance and increased energy and activity, 3 or more of the following symptoms, 4 if mood is only irritable, have persisted, represent a noticeable change from usual behavior, and have been persistent to a significant degree. Number 1, inflated self-esteem or grandiosity. Number 2, decreased need for sleep. 3, more talkative than usual or pressure to keep talking. 4, flight of ideas or subject experience that thoughts are racing. 5, distractibility, attention to easily drawn to unimportant or irrelevant external stimuli as reported or observed. 6, increase in goal-directed activity, either socially, at work or school, or sexually, or psychomotor agitation. 7, excessive involvement in activities that have a high potential for painful consequences. C, the episode is associated with unequivocal change in functioning that is uncharacteristic of the individual when not symptomatic. D, the disturbance in mood and change in functioning are observable by others. E, the episode is not severe enough to cause marked impairment in social or occupational functioning or to necessitate hospitalization. If there are psychotic features, the episode is by definition manic. F, the episode is not attributable to the physiological effects of a substance. Note, a full hypomanic episode that emerges during antidepressant treatment but persists at fully syndromal level beyond the physiological effect of that treatment is sufficient evidence for a hypomanic episode diagnosis. However, caution is indicated so that one or two symptoms, particularly increased irritability, edginess, or agitation following antidepressant use, are not taken as sufficient for diagnosis of a hypomanic episode, nor necessarily indicative of a bipolar diathesis. Note, criteria A through F constitute a hypomanic episode. Hypomanic episodes are common in bipolar 1 disorder, but are not required for the diagnosis of bipolar 1 disorder. So I read a whole lot. I just want to take a break before I read and talk about talk about a major depressive episode to say with Mania, I've had clients with severe trauma histories, just incredibly complex trauma histories where, you know, pretty much everything could be checked off the box, and they are so hyper aroused, like so sensitive to the triggers in their environment, and they're constantly scanning their environment. Their heart's beating fast all the time. They sleep very little because of the anxiety, because of the nightmares. I mean, all of these things that they actually, especially when reminders of the trauma are happening, or they're incredibly overwhelmed and stressed, they will look like they are having a manic episode. And I just know so many clients who, you just looked at their trauma history. I might do like the NMT, which I've done on a previous video where I talked about the brain, how the brain develops, and how, you know, each building block builds upon the other. But when you have repeated stressors in your life, certain parts of your brain are going to be overly developed while other parts are going to be underdeveloped. And the ones that are underdeveloped, right, if you're an adult and you haven't mastered some of these things you should have mastered as a child, but because of all the stress, like, your brain didn't focus on those, it focused on the survival adaptation ones, you can actually look like you have ADHD, you can look like you have bipolar disorder, because it's a difficulty with regulating your emotions, it's a difficulty with regulating your impulses, right? Like, you don't have the ability to do those things because of the trauma, and therefore you might do some reckless spending because the impulse to not spend, or you have some anxiety about, you know, some topic over here, some area over here, and, you know, spending money or whatever, like, makes you feel temporarily free. Again, like, that it can look like what some other disorder like bipolar disorder, like you're having a manic episode because you're, you know, you're engaging in the reckless sex, or you're, you know, having this spending spree, you're talking with pressured speech, very, very common with my folks with trauma, because and it's interesting, like, because I work with kids also. Kids have a way of talking like this, like, not as, like, they just talk really fast about nonsensical things, and if you've ever talked to a kid, you'll know, you're just like because they connect all of these things that don't really make sense, but it's still little brains, like, they're trying to make sense of things. That's why they're talking about them. And again, if you have that part of your brain, right, is underdeveloped, so you appear more childlike, but you're, you know, you're an adult, you're gonna look like you got some of this mania going on if you don't go to somebody who's a skilled professional, or who doesn't understand, like, the way the brain works and, like, the development of the brain, and can look at these little subtleties. Like, it's often very, very subtle. A lay person will not be able to differentiate, you know, between a bipolar disorder, or like a manic episode, or somebody who is really having a PTSD reaction and they're struggling in their day-to-day functioning. So that's just one of the things I really wanted to highlight. I actually thought of a very when I was reading this, because I haven't read through the DSM in this type of way and, like, really, like, analyzed it in the way we used to, like, in grad school. I actually thought about a very specific client that I had, and I, you know, thank God they're getting appropriate treatment now, but, you know, for years the person was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and was, like, taking all these medications, and it did more harm than good because their trauma wasn't taken into account. It's also why I'm such an advocate, and why I also get on psychiatrists. Sorry if you're a psychiatrist, and it's not their fault. They can only see people for like 15 minutes, but if you're just looking and you're checking out things here on a box and you're not getting a thorough history, you can't get like a thorough history in 15 minutes. You know, you just can't. Like, it takes my assessments are 90 minutes. Most therapists I know, our assessments cover a couple of sessions, right? Where it takes time to really dive into this stuff and you start to see the interconnections and the patterns that emerge. If you only see somebody one time, right? Psychiatrists, medical professionals too, because doctors, PCPs, primary care physicians, can also prescribe meds. You see a person once or twice and they just tell you like, oh, I'm talking really fast like this, and I went on this crazy spending spree, and like you can't slow them down. You're like, oh, bipolar, here you go, And I'm not saying like all doctors or psychiatrists do stuff like this, but again, this is why like many therapists, many psychologists are trying to get prescribing privileges, and there's like just all kinds of stuff going on with that, because us mental health professionals who work with folks day to day on symptom alleviation through therapy, we see the differences here. So anyway, that's like a little mini rant. I didn't mean to interject it so long, but again, it's very easily, especially with the mania, for the mania and the PTSD, especially if it's complex trauma, for there to be a lot of overlap and the trauma to be missed, especially if the person comes in during a manic episode. So people typically don't come in when they're having a manic episode. They'll typically come through during a depressive episode, because the mania for the person is fun. For the people around them, it's not so fun, but for them, it's fun. It's like a high, but the depressions are typically so low that they are often suicidal, and that's what brings them in. So now we're going to jump in and talk about a major depressive episode. Major depressive episode. A. 5 or more of the following symptoms have been present during the same 2-week period and represent a change from previous functioning. At least one of the symptoms is either a depressed mood or loss of interest or pleasure. Note: do not include symptoms that are clearly attributable to another medical condition. 1. Depressed mood most of the day, nearly every day, as indicated by either subjective report, feel sad, empty or hopeless, or observation made by others, appears tearful. Note: in children and adolescents can be irritable mood. Number 2. Markedly diminished interest in pleasure in all or almost all activities most of the day, nearly every day, as indicated by either subjective account or observation. 3. Significant weight loss when not dieting, or weight gain, change of more than 5% of body weight in a month, or decrease or increase in appetite nearly every day. Note: in children, consider failure to make expected weight gain. 4. Insomnia or hypersomnia, nearly every day. 5. Psychomotor agitation or retardation, nearly every day, observable by others, not merely subjective feelings of restlessness or being slowed down. Number 6. Fatigue or loss of energy, nearly every day. 7. Feelings of worthlessness or excessive or inappropriate guilt, which may be delusional, nearly every day, not merely self-reproach or guilt about being sick. Again, this is something that you'll see also with PTSD, feeling kind of bad about yourself, a lot of guilt. That's a common overlap. Number 8, diminished ability to think or concentrate, or indecisiveness, nearly every day, either by subjective account or observed by others. Again, also in PTSD, also in anxiety, I just read that, and also in ADHD. 9, recurrent thoughts of death, not just fear of dying, recurrent suicidal ideation with or without a specific plan, or a suicide attempt or specific plan for committing suicide. B. The symptoms cause clinically significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of functioning. C. The episode is not attributable to the physiological effects of a substance or another medical condition. Note: criteria A through C constitute a major depressive episode. Major depressive episodes are common in bipolar 1 disorder, but are not required for the diagnosis of bipolar 1 disorder. Note: responses to significant loss, bereavement, financial ruin, losses from a natural disaster, a serious medical illness or disability may include the feelings of intense sadness, rumination about loss, insomnia, poor appetite, and weight loss, noted in criteria A, which may resemble a depressive episode. Although such symptoms may be understandable or considered appropriate for loss, the presence of major depressive episode, in addition to the normal response to significant loss, should also be carefully considered. This decision inevitably requires the exercise of clinical judgment based on the individual's history and cultural norms for the expression of distress in the context of loss. Okay, hope y'all are still with me. So, for a bipolar 1 disorder diagnosis, A. Criteria A have been met for at least one manic episode. B. The occurrence of the manic and major depressive episodes is not better explained by schizoaffective disorder. That has been said again, so I'm just going to briefly tell you. Schizoaffective disorder is when you have the symptoms of like a schizophrenia or a delusional disorder mixed with one of the called like emotional disorders like a depression, schizophrenia, schizophreniform disorder, delusional disorder, or other specified or unspecified schizophrenia spectrum, and other psychotic disorders. So I haven't done this with the other videos, but I feel like it's important for this one because with bipolar 1 you can have some other kind of comorbid, as we say, mental health diagnoses or like difficulties as well, or they can be brought on by something else, and so we'll call those specifiers. So the examples of different specifiers you can have bipolar 1 disorder with anxious distress, with mixed features, with rapid cycling. One of the misconceptions about bipolar disorder is that you're literally going from extremes one after the other, like boom, boom, like 1 week on, 1 week out. It doesn't act like that. You have a manic episode, you have your depressive episode, there's some time in between where you're asymptomatic, but you kind of fluctuate between one or the other. With rapid cycling, you have to have 4 of either manic or depressive episodes within a 12-month period, and that's what's considered rapid cycling. So bipolar is not like as insidious as I feel like the media makes it out to be, but again, it's also very distressing if you're somebody who suffers from bipolar. So that's rapid cycling. With melancholy features, with atypical features, with mood congruent psychotic features, with mood incongruent psychotic features, with catatonia, with peripartum onset, with a seasonal pattern. And for a bipolar 2 diagnosis, the distinction between bipolar 1 and bipolar 2 is for a bipolar 2 diagnosis, you have to have a hypomanic episode. And I've already read hypomania, so I'm not going to read it again. And you have to also have a major depressive episode. So those two together give you the bipolar 2 diagnosis. Having a manic or a hypomanic episode, as well as the depressive one, gives you a manic, can give you a bipolar 1 disorder diagnosis. Okay, whew, that was a lot. So as you can see, bipolar 1 is very intricate, very distressing. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. It causes a lot of distress for the person experiencing it, for the people around them. I already kind of spoke a little bit about how you can get that confused, or how a bipolar 1 diagnosis can overlook a person's trauma, a PTSD diagnosis. And this is probably one of the only times where I would say that with bipolar 1, you're going to want to treat the bipolar before you're going to try to jump in there and treat the trauma, because for bipolar 1 you do need medication to stabilize what's going on with the mania and the depression. Like, it can have side effects, but I think for most folks the side effects are worse than like living with this very extreme fluctuations in mood. And it's treatable. You can also you can do some therapy, but the two can exist at the same time. You can see how easily it is, especially if you are talking about trouble with like emotional regulation. It can look like mania. The depression can occur in both, right? Feeling really bad about yourself, low energy, sadness, guilt. All of these things can also be present in PTSD. So again, there's a lot of overlap in the symptoms, and it really does take a licensed mental health professional to tease out what's going on, and to give you like the appropriate treatment, and give you appropriate treatment options. So I know that's a lot. Comment down below, is there something here that I shared with you that maybe you didn't know about with bipolar 1 disorder? Also, of course, if there's something you wish I would have covered that I didn't, I want to hear about that as well. So comment down below. I want to hear from you. And with that long video, thanks for sitting through it. That's all I got for you guys today, and I will see you in the next one.